Alright guys, welcome back to the insufferable Eustace. I don't trust her anymore, but we're gonna continue on with this whole charade of whatever she's trying to do, quote unquote helping us. So you're just going to let him take the blame? You'd let Catherine die in vain? You are treading on dangerous ground. Do you think me uncaring? Do you think this is easy? I think Catherine would have wanted justice to be done. You don't know a fucking thing about Sister Catherine. Not a thing. So don't pretend you know anything about what she would have wanted or what justice for her would look like. I know plenty. I know she was good at chess. I know she was a sharp reader. And I know she had a keen sense of what is and isn't fair. I heard about her letters to France and her thoughts on money. I know she fancied herself a warrior and tried to teach you all how to fight. I know she wanted everyone to try new things and think. Think about what they could do with their time on God's earth. And I know she liked plays. All of that's correct. But it's like you said before, you know so much. But altogether, very, very little. Well then what am I missing? I know that she's someone who wouldn't just be left in the lurch by her friends. I know people loved her. Surely that's enough. That's only half of it. Hedwig, think about it. Everyone here loved her, is that it? Has everyone been sharing stories about how wonderful she is? Of course. And you don't believe James killed her? You don't believe it was some random murder? Neither do you. And that's just it. Hedwig, if that man didn't kill her, then someone here did. Not a ghost, not a bear, one of the sisters here. That rhymed. And that means the things people loved about her, that's only half the story. You're saying someone is lying to me? You will never find an answer because you will never fully grasp what her relationships here were like. I just want the truth, for her sake. Eustace began to chuckle and then laugh heartily. I was stunned. This is in very poor taste. I'm not laughing at you, what's gotten into you? Excuse me. How could I possibly convey everything I know that you don't? The idea that you don't understand is just... Oh, yes, you're very proud of how intelligent you are, aren't you? The very thought of explaining what I know to someone who wasn't there. You didn't see her lying there. You can't possibly know. Eustace? She was doubled over laughing now. Oh yeah, she has something to do with it. This is just stupid. She either did it or she is involved in it somehow. It was a disturbing sight to say the least, but it was her words that truly got under my skin. You didn't see your friend covered in blood. What would you know about it? All you've ever done is read books. All you ever do is speculate. You're poking around in stories you have no stake in. Events you weren't there for. Isn't that right? Are you quite alright? You don't even know what she looked like. I saw her with my own eyes. Her head in her hands. Blood all over the place. I cleaned it all up. I was her dearest confidant, and I couldn't help and I couldn't stop it. And you think you could do better? She either lost her damn mind because of the murder, which makes perfect sense, or again, she had something to do with it. Like, it's just she's too unstable right now. I didn't mean to. I didn't know what to do. I tried my best to assume a comforting stance, some sort of embrace. Although my arms never made around Eustace's body, she jerked her head back and began to dry heave between her humorless, maniacal laughs. I carried her by her legs and with Moira, like two ale wrenches carrying a drunkard home. Her head kept falling off. Can you imagine it? Your friend's severed head rolling off of her chest, bouncing on the stone, over and over, down the chapel's front stairs. Stop it! You made your point. And you know what? For as brave as faces I put on, as stoic as I have to stay even now, even I could not shake the feeling that even through her dead eyes, that she was looking straight at me. The murderer! Stop! How perfectly horrible it all was. Just the idea is devastating. Is it? Well, I saw it. I touched it. I was there. Her hollow laughs had given way to bitter, dry sobs. I tried to pat her on the back, or something of the sort, anything that might comfort her. But she stood upright as soon as I touched her, brushing me away. Promise me. No, I'm not promising that. Promise me you'll stay out of it. Please. Eustace. This mess, it's too much for me to bear, and I do understand the extent of it all. I was present for the whole affair, and I can't bring myself to do anything about it. I don't know who could be watching. I don't know what else might happen. Maybe that's why I can help. Why I should help. Eustace shook her head. No, there's nothing you can do. Nothing? You don't know how much progress I've already made. It can't be much if you're still standing here. What's that supposed to mean? Whatever sort of conspiracy is playing out here, it would have to be all-consuming. I knew the instant the Superior announced she'd be joining us that it must have something to do with Catherine. If it was that obvious to me. I know that I'm being watched. I've seen someone. Perhaps more than one person. I can't know for certain. Figures in the shadows. That's always been me. My stupid practical joke. I did that to scare you off. But it didn't work clearly. Maybe some of them. But I know it hasn't always been you. How? How could you possibly convince yourself of such ridiculous... Because I just saw them. She suddenly went very pale. You... On top of the wall. Not a quarter of an hour ago. Unless you can be in two places at once. It couldn't possibly have been you. Eustace wiped her face with her sleeve. Maybe that was someone else I put up to scare you. Maybe this is all another trick of mine. I don't believe it is. Then you should take my warnings even more seriously. Are there ghosts here? Devils? I don't know. But I know there is some malevolence at work in this place that is real. It is hurting people, killing them. And I'm trying to help you stay off its gaze. Your concern is noted. I know it's a dark force at work in this place. It killed Catherine and it's taken Flora. On that we can agree. But I'm not just doing this for the Superior. If Flora never showed her face here again, how would you feel? If you have any decency, you must feel wretched just imagining it. I feel that way without Catherine, and I never met her. All I have is one of her books and some of your stories. So I know you must feel worse than I do. I'm scared witless by the shadow I worry is creeping in the shadows. But it would be worse to ignore it. And I am not going to let it stop me. Not them, nor you. I will not let the devil win. I held no blade in my hands, but at that moment I felt like I could have taken on an army by myself. I breezed past dumbfounded Eustace back towards the Abbey. I put her behind me and walked as fast as I could. I could hear her shouting behind me as I put distance between us. Eustace, Angela, the Superior, they were all making demands of me, but I served one, and one alone. Hedwig! Leave it be! Leave it alone! Hedwig! Listen to me! Don't listen to her. Chances are you're gonna die anyway, so may as well just go full front about it. The search continued well into the evening. As darkness fell, the weather turned foul. It was pouring now, and the stone walls rumbled, or rolling thunder shook the mountain itself. We had all gathered into the chapel again. From a quick glance around the room, I gathered that everyone had returned empty-handed. Charity took to the altar again, looking grim. No joy? That is rather worrying. Well, that looks weird. Why is she covered in blood? We've looked everywhere. Oh, that's the wine, right? Yeah. I explored places I've never been before. Everyone had put in a lot of work, it seemed. There had been no time to relax or get changed. Some of our frocks were still covered in wine. It would have been motivating had the situation been slightly less grim. The determination I felt after my conversation with Eustace was being tested. I wanted to blow out that I had a good idea of where Flora might be. We could all walk down that hallway together. Surely there was nothing so frightening down there that nearly a frozen woman could not face. But if someone here were responsible for some grand plan that I did not understand, would I just be putting Flora in more danger? Or that could be Flora watching you. Would I be placing myself in harm's way? Appearing too observant? Too clever? I could make myself the next target if I spoke up now. I tried not to think about which of these two arguments swayed me more. Stressing over my plan was putting my stomach in knots. I hoped someone else might suggest what I could not, but that was never going to happen. My cell was not and had never been on anyone's mind. My cell had never been in any of these women's hearts. As I looked around the room, I noticed that Marta was standing off to the side of the chapel alone, She looked gaunt and weak. I'd been consistently surprised by her vigor up until now. But for the first time, she looked her age. Well, is there anywhere that has not been scoured? The cellars, the croft. Those were my first ideas. I see. And I know Adela looked into the same place after I did. I think that all of us have individually checked everywhere one after the other. We've all doubled up. I do not doubt that people have put their back into it. Oh, I'm worried. I really hope she is safe. If only we had looked a little harder last night. It's not your fault. Missing for one night, that's just acting out. Missing for 2 nights. We have done everything we can today, I'm afraid. I think we all need to rest and try again tomorrow. My feet are killing me. No. We have to keep looking. I understand how seriously we're all taking this, but we should take a breather. A night's sleep is what we all need right now. We'll expand out beyond the grounds tomorrow, I think. I don't need any of you falling asleep and rolling down the hill. Flora missing is quite enough, thank you. Everyone seemed to agree, albeit reluctantly. When I had left Eustace in the garden, a plan had formed in my mind. I had a sneaking suspicion where Flora was, but I dared not share it with the rest of the sisters. There was a place I was certain nobody had checked. A place I knew even Margaret had likely avoided, even if she had considered it. The thought terrified me, but I knew I had to check, for Flora's sake. We all filed out of the chapel back towards the dorms through the storm. I really hope she isn't out in this weather. If she is, I would wager she is safe. She is young and resourceful. Remember when Catherine taught us how to make fires? I do. You're right, she's probably having a more comfortable night than us. Adela rubbed Moira's shoulder reassuringly, then broke off to go and talk to Angela. Should someone tell the superior what we did today? I wouldn't. I went to try and talk to her earlier, and I could hear her sobbing, even through that thick door of hers. I imagine she's been getting shouted at by the bishop all day. I don't think we should talk to her until we have good news. Ah, dear. Oh, dear. The moment I sat down in my bed, I had a sinking feeling that I was not going to be able to sleep before I got a chance to test my theory. I could just sense it. No, my bones told me. I sighed and rolled onto my back fully dressed. I stared at the ceiling for a while. The thick stone walls gave us a great deal of privacy, and I had to strain to hear the slightest indication that the others were getting ready for bed. I thought about cracking open the copy of Medea that Catherine had written for me, but I remembered the subject matter and decided now was not the right time. Wait, wasn't Medea about the whole, cutting off someone's head? Like, that could be a clue. I said a little prayer asking for some guidance. No wisdom came to me, but then I sheepishly remembered that I had been granted an entire vision not long ago. As always, I was asking far too much and doing far too little. For at least an hour, I stewed in my own thoughts. I tossed and turned trying to find a position in my bed that didn't get uncomfortable after a few minutes. I scratched itches that weren't really there and attempted to fulfill my pillow, or fluff my pillow, into a shape that would grant me sleep the instant my head touched it. I just started getting comfortable, I swear, when I heard a strange sound carrying on outside my door. I hopped out of bed and stepped out into the hall. It was almost pitch black out here, save for the embers pulsing in the fireplace. Nobody else seemed was bothered by the noise to poke their head out like I had, because they were probably sleeping. I sighed. I hoped dimly that it had been Flora returning to her dorm. I retrieved and lit a candle from the mantelpiece. There was no use torturing myself in bed any longer. Now, which room was Flora's? I knew Catherine's room was next to mine and had a squeaking door. I remember Moira's room had inky paw prints leading out of it next to Catherine's. Darcy's was on the very end of my row, closest to the hearth. I chanced the door I couldn't place. I felt so nosy, but if I could spare myself a horrid adventure to that hall, ever so gently I pushed the unfamiliar door with my fingers. I realized this was not a particularly wise idea. The door swung inward. Not only was it rude, it was conspicuous. I pushed this door in just a little more before thinking better of it. Just before I relented, however, I caught something odd. I could hear at least 2 people breathing on the other side of this door. They must have been discussing where else to look for Flora. I reasoned and gone late into the night out of concern. Or perhaps a darker voice in the back of my head suggested they had been scheming on what cruelties to enact on her next. Just then I heard a startling sound. It had come from far away, but even so, it was blood-curdling. I scampered out of the dormitories and onto the landing. I did my best to steel myself. If only I had thought to demand Eustace lend me the sword when I had found the courage to stand up to her in the garden. The pricket would have to do. I heard it again. This time it was mixed with that same hair-raising whine I had heard in my cell's hallway. My heart stopped. That was definitely a woman yelling. Screaming? I panicked. Was I too late? I had not told any of the others about my theory. Flora was hiding in my old cell. None of them could know. If Flora was the target of someone's dark machinations the way Catherine had been, I had to be the one to find her. I picked up my pace and jogged towards the dark hallway crossing. The huge door was rattling in the wind again, but that wasn't the source of the sound I was chasing. It was definitely coming from the darkest hall, the one my cell was in. The one that evil sigil was in. I froze for a moment, unsure what to do. The pride I had felt deducing the one place nobody would have thought to check had been enough to make me forget about that. The pricket spike could defend me in the pinch if I were face to face with Flora's human attacker. But if it was some devil summoned by that magic circle, could I be down there alone? Should I rouse the superior? Did I have some time to rouse anyone? There was that horrible wail again. It gave me my answer. However small, however vulnerable, however powerless I felt, I knew that there was no time to double back. Demonic sigils be damned. I was a woman of faith. I could withstand whatever it summoned. I sprinted down the hall into the darkness. My candle blew out almost instantly, but I didn't have time to care. I whipped the wax off the pricket to expose the sharp point. It wasn't much, but this would have to serve as my sword for now. I rushed headlong toward the terrible sound, clutching the candle pricket with both hands as if I were wielding a mighty claymore. A face rushed out of the darkness. Hedwig! Run! It all happened too quickly for me to register that I had been correct. Flora blew past me, nearly knocking me over. I didn't have time to ask what was happening. I could hear the terrifying stomp of those boots echoing throughout the halls. We sprinted through the black hall to the dim light ahead of us and turned toward the giant rattling door. Flora bolted straight at it, past the hallway that would take us back toward the dorms. Where are you going? Away from here? I was about to break left for the dormitories, but then I saw exactly why Flora had avoided that path. I caught a glimpse of evil eyes and felt the dull thud of metal boots against the floor close by. Flora's pursuer had navigated to cut us off. I screamed and sprinted as fast as I could after Flora. We made it to the door. I didn't even want to think about how close our pursuer was. Where are you? What's happening? Help me open this, now! She was pushing against the imposing door with all her might, but it wouldn't budge. I threw my meager weight against the edge of it to try and help, but it was so heavy I felt like I might as well have been pushing against a stone wall. The wind was pressing it shut, and two small women whose shoes were slipping over the flagstone floor weren't doing much to combat it. My fingers were in danger of being caught in the jam every time the door buckled, but I kept pushing. I turned my hand, caught a glimpse of the monster bearing down on us. It was as tall and terrible as I remembered, but this time it was enveloped in a cloud of smoke. Embers crackled around Sola's eyes. There was no oiled sword this time. This monster brought the very fires of hell with it. Eustace! This isn't funny! Even though I knew it couldn't be her, I pleaded just in case. I still had a dim hope that this was just another prank, that Eustace had been telling the truth after all, but the creature was unmoved. The giant oaken door finally swung open just enough for me to slip through. I turned to try and yank Flora out with me, grabbing a handful of whatever cloth I could find as I made it outside, but the door caught her foot as I pulled her through. Help! I held onto her free hand with both of mine. She yelped, and I could tell that the monster on the other side of the threshold had grabbed onto her. Don't let go! I won't! Her face contorted and twisted as the door squeezed her ankle. At the very least, it was doing enough to keep the demon from pulling her away from me. Had it not been for that massive slab of wood, I doubt I would have been able to help at all. Hedwig! The wind let up for a moment, and a sudden lack of force set us both off balance, and the weight of the door lifted. We fell down, and the door swung open, just far enough for me to see what our attacker had just let go of Flora as well. She was scrambling towards me on all fours, but the beast lurched forward to snatch her again. I held my hands out again to hold on to the poor girl's arm. Her fingers gripped my frock, and I held her wrist as tightly as I could, but I knew I could not combat this monster alone. The wind suddenly picked up again, and just as both of us got hold of Flora, the door slammed shut again with a sickening crunch. I managed to pull Flora clear of the beast's lunge, but I hadn't been fast enough to keep her leg from being crushed by the door. She wailed as I attempted to pull her free. I couldn't manage it, and I was terrified that the door would pull her broken leg right off if I yanked any harder. Pull! Pull! I can't! Is it still holding on to you? I don't know! I can't feel anything! She was sobbing and screaming. I planted my feet against the wall and pulled her toward me. By some miracle, the wind let up just enough for the door to loosen its grip on Flora's leg. We tumbled backwards into a heap. My head hit the floor with a crack, and for a moment my vision faded. My eyes slowly regained focus, and I looked up into the threshold. Okay, that face looks like a goat's face, or at least the eyes look like a goat. And if you look here, these look like horns. Over here. But, I don't know. Weird. I closed my eyes once more and braced myself for the end, and hoped despite everything that I would see heaven. Of course it disappears, but death never came. When I opened my eyes, the monster was gone. The door swung shut again, slower this time. The wind was still blowing, but it had died down just a little. Flora wasn't moving. I shook her gently in an attempt to rouse her. There. I think it's gone. She did not answer. Excuse me. I held on to her tight and stared up into the night sky. What a mess I made of everything. Raindrops pelted my face. I knew I had to move, but I was wholly leadened. The events of the past few weeks and their brutal dismantling of my steady faith were weighing me down. I scarcely recognized myself, and I actively tried to reject the situation I found myself in. The pain in the back of my head was getting unbearable. I squeezed my eyes shut. I'm dreaming, I remember thinking. This is not real. Those cards even told me. No, I could not consider pagan frivolities. I was a faithful anchoress. I was simply having a long, horrible nightmare. Another vision. When you open your eyes again, I told myself, you'll be home. You'll be back in your cell, dry and warm, your oath intact, and maybe you'll be able to try it all over again. But that isn't the case. I had no such luck. Wait, that was it? That's how it ends? No. That was so good. Why? Ugh. Now I gotta wait for volume 2. I thought we'd at least find out who the killer was, and then, we get, to be continued or something. Aw, this is good. I can't wait for volume 2 now. Good job in the developers for this game. I still don't trust Eustace. I don't like how out of touch she is. It's just, it grates on me, But yeah, otherwise guys, this game was pretty good. I can't wait for the next one to come out. Hopefully it comes out soon because, oh boy, what a cliffhanger. Let me see if we can speed through this. A huge thank you to anyone who made a stock image recording or tool that was used in this production. You made this solo project possible. In England, 1483. In the beginning. It is growing rather late, isn't it? I apologize, but I think I'll leave my story here for tonight. I did not cover anything close to what I consider the full story, but it's a rather exciting place to leave things, is it not? Even if you know what happens, there's still a sense of, oh, I don't know. I felt something recalling these misadventures even though I had lived them. Do you know how things turned out? No, don't tell me who you are. I am getting some enjoyment out of imagining telling this story to an impartial audience. Please don't be frustrated with me for stopping here when my investigation just barely started. I promise you that all these details are important. I may not have realized it at the time. In fact, I only just noticed the importance of some things after speaking them out loud to you. So really, I must thank you. May I confide something in you? This is the first time that I feel like I understand the job of a chronicler. Or rather, I finally have something worth chronicling. And someone to tell those chronicles to. It's a shame that it took so long for me to feel inspired. And that these are such awful events. But I suppose that the worst events are the ones that need the best records. Would you agree? In that spirit, I can offer you some of my notes. I believe I have some from the appropriate time I can share with you. Here. They aren't much, but you can peruse these while I prepare for our next meeting. Anyway, I must rest. We can continue this soon. Thank you for listening to me prattle on and on. I'll be ready to share more before you know it. That was good. Damn. Alright, well, that's the end of Misericorde Volume 1, guys. If anything, I can't help but look forward to Part 2 whenever that comes out. So if anything else, guys, thank you all for watching. And I'll see you all in the next one.